Everybody knows Rockstar Games. If anybody needs a reminder, they made all the games that your parents would remind you to stay away from when you were at your friend's house. Beyond this though, most know Rockstar to be one of the most talented developers around, creating games that not only top sales charts, but are also critically unrivaled. They hold 5 spots in Metacritic's top 10 games of all time. And the hilarious part is that GTA 4 is apparently so good that it occupies 2 of the slots in the top 5. Even though, in my eyes, it could possibly deserve both of these slots, it is not the game I would like to talk about at this time. Everybody comes out to purchase the newest Rockstar experience as they mostly know what to expect. They have built an identity over the years through creating the best open world games on the market. The Grand Theft Auto series alone has raised the bar for open world experiences on almost every entry's release. Red Dead Redemption 1 and 2 have both shown that there is a large market for games which take place in the Wild West, and they have also raised the bar on what to expect from a Rockstar narrative. Even LA Noire set new standards, as it had the most expressive facial animations from any game at the time of its release. And the game was so good that it has fans clamoring for a sequel that they may never get. Even after all of this time though, I find it shocking to say that possibly one of Rockstar's greatest titles does not get the recognition that the rest of their catalog has in spades. Where most Rockstar games typically go the route of creating large open worlds with realistic environmental details, the game I want to discuss remained a linear narrative shooter. It removed the parodic nature that had previously defined almost all of Rockstar's classics. Most know this game, so if you haven't figured it out quite yet, Max Payne 3 is the game I would like to discuss, and it's not only one of Rockstar's best games, but it's also one of the best shooters ever made. I love this title, and I plan on discovering what makes this game so special. As it's been over 20 years since the original's release, I will give a quick debrief on where this audio-sensory overload originated from. The original Max Payne was released in 2001, and it was created by Remedy Entertainment. The game released to both critical acclaim and great sales numbers. It was praised for popularizing the cinematic bullet time ability in shooters, which can be described as the ability to slow down time before attempting to line up headshots with your character. Funnily enough though, bullet time can also be seen in Rockstar's GTA 5 and their Red Dead Redemption series, clearly showing Max Payne's impact on Rockstar as a studio. The first Max Payne's paneled and noir stylings were also greatly celebrated, as they brought players to a storytelling style that was much more akin to a graphic novel than what was expected from a video game. Max Payne 2 continued to expand on these attributes over 2 years later, and it was also the first Max Payne to be published through Rockstar Games. Even though many loved the sequel just as much, if not more than its predecessor, the game did not meet the expected sales quota. It only acquired what was considered as middling sales, especially after the first title's success. Before I move on to the third entry, the one which interests me the most, I would like to pay respect to the original creators. I don't really know what happened behind the scenes, but I would like to say that the first two games are extremely special. And Alan Wake, along with Control, are both fantastic games. Remedy is not praised nearly as much as they should be, and I find it necessary to pay respect to the original creators before I gush over the third entry, which was published and developed entirely by Rockstar's in-house studios. Where Max Payne and Max Payne 2 have that New York crime thriller setting, the third leans more towards modernizing and becoming digital in its stylings. It drops the panels, instead going for an almost delirious slideshow of pain, creating a much grittier and more disturbing depiction of Max relative to the first two entries. It's a bit repulsive. Not only do you watch Max go through these hellish gauntlets for survival, but you also observe the torture he inflicts upon himself over the death of his family. He consumes painkillers constantly, and it's shown in a horrific manner. He writhes on the floor of his apartment, drinking his life away in cutscenes. And the game not only shows this cycle of abuse during the moments in between combat, but it also shows it in the gameplay itself. Max is constantly taking painkillers, and the game almost depicts his addiction as fuel to run this mechanization of serialized murder. I won't lie, these themes can seem rather depressing for an over-the-top action shooter such as this. And it would be far too dark if it wasn't so damn fun shooting people in this game. The gunplay is visceral and extremely reactive. You will be running down hallways just to throw all of your body weight into the air in one last feral attempt to stay alive. This isn't John Wick. Max isn't elegant to even the slightest capacity. He hits the floor like a ton of bricks and his body almost looks too frail to continue, but he just keeps going. It's inhuman the way Max conducts himself. He only has one mode, and that is just to kill whatever keeps him from his next objective. It does get somewhat overwhelming at times, but I personally find the game's commitment to these themes intoxicating. I love that this game can be dark, and it wouldn't work nearly as well if the music wasn't so great. I feel as if we all know that good music heightens every great gaming experience. And it's not shocking that one of the best Rockstar games has one of their most insane soundtracks. I don't know what led Rockstar to collaborate with Health to score this title, but it turned out to be one of the best soundtracks in the medium. It replicates what I would picture to be the sound of anxiety and anger, while retaining the digital stylings present throughout the game. All instrumentals are washed with distortion and reverb, which typically align with Max's intoxicated and despondent state. The music can also match the pace of Max's frenetic actions, usually having a strong and unchanging rhythm, which almost antagonizes the player into eviscerating whatever stands in their path. Not to say that there also aren't lows to match these climaxes though, as Max tends to reminisce between his encounters, loathing his past misfortunes. To this, Health created these incredible melancholic guitar ballads that overwhelm the player with grief and dejection, while still maintaining that digital styling. This all culminates to create this extremely versatile soundtrack that complements the game so well that it has me seething over the fact that there is no follow-up to the third entry, if not just to get another soundtrack from Health. Now that we have gone over some of the best parts of Max Payne's third installment, it's time to go over some of the worst. Even though I love this game so much, I cannot say that everyone will. The game is extremely linear, creating an experience which is incredibly fun on your first run through it. But its replay value mostly depends on how much you enjoyed the combat and set pieces within the game. I enjoyed both of these aspects of the game greatly, and I love to replay it. That is, until I remember I can't skip most cutscenes. I have an NVMe solid state drive, and there is no reason the game should need to load for what feels like an eternity. This dampens all following playthroughs, as to enjoy the combat, you have to slowly retread the narrative. This leads well into the next issue, as there is one more massive flaw that can make or break someone's experience within the game, and that is its narrative. Even if I were to give this game the benefit of the doubt, which I really want to, I would still say that it tells an extremely inconsequential story that could be considered alright to kind of good. The problem is that I would only state this if I was feeling awfully generous towards the game. In reality, if someone tried to get me to explain the narrative to them, I would be unsure of how to respond. After having played Max Payne 3 5 times, I can say that between all of the characters present in the game, here are the ones I remember. This is, not ideal. It also doesn't help that the story is convoluted beyond belief, and every time you think you start to understand something, the game tries to pull the rug from under you, reducing your understanding back to essentially nothing. The way the plot twists were implemented in this game doesn't heighten the experience, it just disinterests the player. It makes the game much harder to get into, especially when the first two were so much easier to understand, leaving older fans left confused as to what happened when writing this entry. It's not all bad though, as the themes in the narrative still work great, and the writing does allow for some great set pieces to occur throughout the experience. Also, the confusing nature of the story does kinda match Max's state. It feels as if the game is skipping large portions of the narrative, and I don't necessarily agree with that decision, nor am I trying to excuse it, but it does match Max's spotty memory. His brain is held together by what seems to be tape at some points. What the player sees is what the drug-addled brain of Max remembers, so in a strange way, it almost fits that the story has large gaps and time skips within it. On the other hand, writing is great in regard to dialogue. The voice acting fits perfectly, and it allows the player to enjoy the moment-to-moment character interactions quite a bit. So even if some of these criticisms may sound rather scathing to a linear game such as this, in the grand scheme of things, it's only a footnote of your experience when you've seen all that the game has to offer. Many know of Max Payne, and by no means is Max Payne 3 a cult classic. It sold 4 million copies in its first year, and that is absolutely nothing to scoff at. The title seems to have faded into obscurity though, and I feel as if the game should still be celebrated, even among Rockstar's esteemed catalog. I don't necessarily think that everybody would enjoy this game, but if it looks interesting to you and you haven't tried it, I urge you to give it a shot at some point. Max Payne has a storied past, and with 3 games, a good port, and a terrible movie, I feel as if there is too much history for Rockstar to let go of this franchise completely. I hope that a 4th installment comes to fruition at some point. I am well aware that there is a remake of the first 2 games coming soon, and I'm glad that Remedy seems to be taking the reins of the franchise again. I know they said they were possibly interested in making a new entry in the series at some point, and I can only hope that this turns out to be true. This video may be considered as long-winded, especially for a game no one seems to care about anymore. So I would like to thank anybody who decided to listen and stick through my rants, and I hope you found this somewhat entertaining.